Holy smoked! It is not a jokey thing. The Fed just decided upon this. Coinbase with a fresh XRP ETF, and some quite significant game-changing news. Hi there, gorgeous folks! About the crypto market, about the scenario, about the stock market, about the geopolitics. I want to discuss with you people. Like knock on wood, we had an alert before, right? Sirens before. It did not function last night. With luck, we won't get another one during this video. And soon, we will have the feed with his speech. Thus, I cannot go live as I do not want to flee away in the midst bomb shelter. Later tonight, though, I will provide you a TLDR of what the Fed chairman stated. We will discuss that. So make sure you ring the bell and subscribe to the channel to get alerts when a fresh video drops. You don't want to miss any fresh breaking news, any market developments, any significant information you require. Let's aim for 3,000 likes on this video as well. You people are capable, as I know. Thus, all I need is a lovely grin to transmit the positive good vibes. You know, even if we have missiles, ballistic missiles flying at us, even if the crypto market is performing awful, beautiful smiles, I just ask from you that. And click the like button. It's okay, even though I'm not sure why people become so irritated from all the antics. It is their prerogative. XRP is currently resting at $2.13, down less 1% on the day. As the Fed's news leaked, we noticed a pop-up here, but now we are seeing a minor sell-off. Bitcoin behaves similarly, and the S&P 500 move in the same direction. This is starting to show. The Fed chose to retain their current interest rate level. FOMC has voted to maintain the same interest rate level. Big, not unusual. We knew this was on approach. I went over the chances with you. They're correct. Typically, they're correct. Ever since I began monitoring Fed decisions and interest rate increases started, it was quite low for very long, so before that, it wasn't really significant and it had no effect on the markets. But ever since they began increasing rates of interest, I have been following the statistics, and generally speaking, it's accurate. I cannot recall a moment when it was not accurate. Hence, our interest rates remain the same. Powell, even if Trump truly wants the Fed chairman to lower interest rates, and he keeps calling him out and he calls him too late, is continuing. The Fed chairman, Powell, is going to, go his way, do what he said. He's looking at the statistics, seeing what's occurring, and the tariffs, haven't really affected enough to increase interest rates, month to month. However, it somewhat hampered the belief that should they lower interest rates. Hence, that hasn't happened. And for yet, the market hasn't responded to this. Too negatively, like from the low loads to 1%? Sure, really? All right, though it's not a crazy movement. That is what it is. The Fed chairman says what we may want for when we find ourselves in a scenario like this, expecting no change. What could influence the crypto market? What could influence pricing? What could influence the stock market? Should he make optimistic comments during his news conference, which runs roughly 20 minutes, the market might turn positive. Should he say something that could be seen as somewhat unfavorable, the market would somewhat decline. But from my experience, again, of covering this so many times, what I have seen is that instability may arise even inside the speech. It might be up and down and up and down. So, avoid being overly enthralled with a little upward movement. Don't get too scared over a slight movement to the negative. Many times, I made these movies on this day, and an hour or two later the videos are useless as the market moves. It turns across to the other side. He says something. He mentions Bitcoin. Or he says something about the markets. He says something about Trump. And inside the speech, the market dances and flows. Thus, even if observing the market is a highly fascinating day, there is much volatility, and it is very difficult to catch. Therefore, if you were considering day trading, which is quite difficult, you know what I mean. 1 minute you might be up, the next minute you might be down, and halted, lost, and liquidated. You must thus use it quite carefully. Sounds good. Another XRP sank in Canada. Third crypto asset manager. On the Toronto Stock Exchange, I recently started an XRP ETF under the XRPQ ticker. Ripple supports, as she was an early investor. Intriguing? This is still under progress in Canada. Back then, I'm not sure whether you remember, but Grayscale moved their assets, also to the New York Stock Exchange, after having ETFs on the Canadian stock market for a long period before the spot Bitcoin ETFs were permitted. Back in February 2017, 18, even 19, individuals were making investments via the Canadian stock market. Thus, quite very fascinating. The Canadian stock market already shows this occurring. Chinese Bitcoin mining machine builders are establishing U.S. facilities. Enterprising. To avoid Trump's escalating China tariffs, top 3 Bitcoin mining rig builders, Bitmain, Canaan, and MicroBT, are building manufacturing facilities in the U.S. This seems fascinating. We will see more announcements like these of businesses returning to the U.S., not only crypto-related material. We know how Trump has behaved after Apple, and we will see whether this, influences the markets into the next coming years. Are things created in a significant alteration here? Maybe the manufacturing of many goods created in China is a thing of the past. Yes? Things will thus be quite fascinating to observe how things will turn out. Will we see more of this kind of future occurrence? Regarding the China-US Accord, we so yet receive no updates. Thus, once more, that is another factor influencing the market. Of course, we also have the entire U.S. scenario. Will they, won't they come to celebrate the party alongside Israel? And so we will see how that turns out. Again, you have to keep in mind that all these factors are simply prospective market shakers and movers. Please pay close attention now. Looking at simply XRP here on the 4-hour chart, it seems somewhat oversold. Indeed, you are clearly seeing it. We plummeted all the way to the bottom here last time on the 4-hour chart. We observed a going to the top. Once more, that does not mean that we will definitely rise from here. It could trickle down somewhat more. As you can see, though, XRP typically exhibits some kind of comeback when it reaches the 4-hour chart. Though it takes a day or two, it does that healing. Once more, this is the 4-hour chart, so the movement is more 2 to 3 day. If we visit the 2-day event, it may provide a weekly movement, maybe. And once more, if you climb higher, frames weekly would produce a few, maybe a month, or a month and a half change, and therefore defines how I see it. You should, however, aim to compile a few indicators instead of depending only on one. I decided to follow what someone mentioned in the comments section, that I should sketch an arrow to the downward. Right now, we find ourselves in I drew the 2 arrows in these places, he continued. He said, both times the arrows failed. We are currently in a potential of moving to the upside. What then I am going to do now? We are now in a potential for a movement towards the lower part of the $2 range. He thus instructed me to accomplish so, and now we most likely will be going up. In Hebrew, we call this hafuk halafuk, upside on upside. Perfect? Upside down and upside down. Indeed? Something like that. And so, or opposite. One could argue contrary on opposite. Correctly? We will thus watch whether this comes true. Major news from Coinbase. Though I'm not sure whether you observed, Coinbase stock is rising really elegantly today. Today, Coinbase stock is rising really beautifully, up 15%. And this is also